So one of the things we wanted to do was try and build something in real time, and we give everyone the chance to vote. And we give 3 options. People could vote for a Christmas appeal page with a fully functioning landing page, a donor data dashboard with fully compliant data visualization site, or a donor welcome journey, including a quiz and an email. And we used Menti to do this. And I know it was quite close, wasn't it? But there was a winner in the end.
Yeah, I can quickly show some of the results that we had. But essentially, everyone got the opportunity to vote, and we were very, very close. You can see here on my screen, it always takes much longer than you think. This was Menti. And we had 17 votes for the donor data dashboard, and then 16 votes for a welcome journey. And then after we decided on the donor data dashboard, we got participants to make suggestions about what should be in the dashboard, which features it should have. So these were all the requests for features here. And then finally, we got our participants to decide on a fictional charity, what the name of the charity should be and what the branding should be. And we had a lot of very funny and good suggestions, but we voted, and the charity that we decided to create is called Unicorns Unite, supporting working unicorns, obviously.
Yeah, and at this point, Anna went away and started building, and left me to run through some key principles, really, and to share our journey that we've been on over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years with AI and building with AI, and what we've learned, and some tips and tricks along the way. And we started off by just looking about, why does this matter? And there's a few different elements to it. And one of the key things for me is that, well, it saves you a lot of time and money if you get this right. If you think about it, the old way of doing things, if you wanted to create a specific microsite, you wanted to build an app for your charity, you're probably talking months and months and months, tens of thousands of pounds, and might end up with a fantastic result, but it's going to be only available to the biggest charities, those with the budget to do it. What we love about building with AI is it democratizes that build. It's the prices of a subscription and some tokens. Everything that we show today in the examples is our time plus probably well under £100 of AI usage to build. So this means we can do things quickly, we can test, we can iterate, and hopefully come up with some really great products and solutions, both for internal work, but also supportive facing and helping us to improve the support experience. So yeah, that really what used to take weeks or months, we can now do in hours and days, and that's really powerful, and something that we shouldn't understate, really. And you can have an idea on a Friday afternoon, and by Monday morning you've got a website or an app or something that can be used. And we've all been there. Our IT teams are often under resourced, they've got a million and one things on their to-do list, they can't necessarily keep up with it, and so we can actually get on and build stuff these days. Anna and I should be saying this as consultants and running agencies ourselves, but you actually don't need us in the same way potentially as you did. I think we still got a lot to offer in that human judgment and that style, and knowing what works and what great fundraising looks like and what great support experience is. But the actual build stuff actually becomes much more available to us all, and you don't have to then wait that back and forward of approvals and things. You can gather feedback in real time, you can change things quickly, look at what different color schemes look like, etc. So you can really build something quickly, which is fabulous. So I want to talk you through a few examples. This one is from one of my clients' prostate cancer research. fabulous to work with for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is they give me permission to try some of this stuff and come up with ideas and then build it and then run with it. And one of the questions actually came up later is around, you know, permission and what happens if the IT team don't let you use some of these tools. And what we talk about lots of the reason why that's the case, but I think really what we try to do is show like pilots that don't need support the data. They don't need any confidential information, things that, you know, anyone can build. And one of the points we didn't make earlier is, you know, even if you try and control it within your charity, people are going to use tools and not tell you. And actually, I think you're much better to be more open and have a discussion about it and what you are using and making it safe and having the right policies in place than actually trying to ban something that people will find ways around and potentially put things at risk. So this was Sponsor a Pixel. It came from our summer appeal, which was funding some innovative research around scanning for prostate cancer. And the traditional MRI scan is this grey, grainy images that, you know, you need years and years of radiography experience, and there's a huge backlog in the NHS, versus this new imaging, which is colour. It's quicker, it's better for radiographers, and we wanted to raise money to see if we get to the next stage of the build process. So we did the normal appeal and newsletter, and we thought, is there a digital version we can do of this? Can we build something to bring this alive for supporters? I think this is a good example of blending your experience and knowledge and what's worked in fundraising previously with AI to bring it into a modern use case. So I had a vague memory of a Sponsor a Pixel Square. I think it was a 1,000,000 pixels challenge. I mean, this has gone back to like early 2000s. And it might have been featured on Sophie at some point as well. But, you know, taking that idea and, well, can we flip that? Can we break the image of the scan and take it from the black and white to color and get people to pay £1 to sponsor a pixel? And I'm delighted to say that we did it, and it was incredibly popular. And we sold out the squares, 2 emails, 2 days, all gone. People left messages. You could see it go from grey to colour, so it actually brought the research to life, which was really lovely. So, you know, sadly, the red bits here are signs of prostate cancer. You know, the original image, you just couldn't have picked that up with the naked eye or without years of training. So you could very clearly see the benefits of this research if it comes off and if the technology is proven to work as we hope. So I think that's a really powerful, lovely use case for something that was built and turning an idea, which aren't the problem. Ideas aren't normally our problem. It's actually delivering on them. And I think these tools help us do that much quicker. Anna, I'm going to play your video now. So this is something Anna built. Do you want to say a little bit before I press play? Oh, you're muted. You're just on mute, Anna.
Even on a re-record, God, annoying. No, I was just going to say, if you can press play without the sound, because I'll just do the.
Hiya, it's Anna.
Because I'm here and not actually coding in the background, since this is a re-record. But essentially, this is a part of an AI toolkit I built for Danish charities. So what you're seeing here is a Google Translate of Danish, which is why some things might look a little bit odd. But essentially, this was a journey mapping tool. And what that could do is essentially create a donor journey based on some prompts. So it takes the user through some prompts. And then what you see here is this journey map across 8 weeks. Again, some of the language is not as beautiful as it would be in the original language, but you then see which journey touch points you have across various channels. You've got these active branching rules that tell you, for example, if a contact in segment 1 does not open in 72 hours, then you send an alternative, and similar type branching rules. You've also got your next steps that you can tick off. So it tells you how to use what you've generated here in your own systems. And if we go up, we can also see some notes, the expected KPIs that have been calculated based on the prompt that was entered, a little summary here. And then you can also see that the output that it can create is both this journey map, but also a table. So you can see the various touch points, the A/B tests, or you can have a little bit of a calendar view here. You can essentially regenerate based on changes that you would like it to make. So you could say, oh, I don't like the spacing of the touch points or whatever. Or you can just choose your file type and export it directly from there. Now, this is a tool that I built in less than a week, and it was also part of a suite of tools that I was building simultaneously. So I couldn't say exactly how much time I spent building this, but most of the build was around thinking about which fundraising strategy I wanted hard-coded into it, so which Claude skills to base that tool on. And Craig will talk a little bit more about creating your own bespoke skills, but essentially I created a bespoke journey skill built on best practice from the sector on, what a good frequency might be for different channels, or how to use different channels in an interactive way to maximize effect, to make sure donors feel thanked and appreciated before making a second ask, but not waiting too long, and all that sort of stuff.
Thanks, Anna. So what does actually building AI with AI actually mean? And I think it's probably fair to say it's easier and less magical than people think, because what you're doing really is having a conversation and describing what you want in plain language. I think the prompting rules, with the progress of models over the last year, 18 months, used to, prompting was the key skill, and you would, you had things like prompt stacking and different prompt templates that you could use if you really wanted the best inputs. Now you can literally use the voice mode, have a conversation with it, and then you can ask Claude or OpenAI to, can you turn this into a polished prompt that is going to work, and turn my ideas and sort of verbal articulation of what I want into a really strong prompt, and it will do it for you. So as long as you got the idea and you can talk it and explain it, it actually is a really good skill now, but being able to talk and explain what you want in a way that the AI would be able to understand and create. I'm not a coder. I've never been a coder. I have no technical knowledge on that side of things. And you don't need to be. And that's the brilliant thing about this. You just need to be curious. You just need to want to explore, tinker, learn through failure and finding what doesn't work, and just having a go at this, really. And I think that's what makes it so exciting for me, and really appeals to my sort of inner geek, and enjoying just playing and trying around with it. And the other thing is, this is not magic. One of the ways I've heard it described, it's almost like the world's greatest intern or skilled junior who works at an insane speed, 100 times the rest of us. But just like many of us in our sort of 20s or early career, we think we know it all. And you've almost got that I think is it the Dunning-Kruger curve of, expertise, that people overestimate their knowledge of something early on, and then they truly become an expert, and that's when that sort of effect kicks off, which is really interesting. I think AI is a lot like that, and one of the key things is it's not blindly accepting whatever it comes up with and says, and challenging it, and asking questions, and building from there. So I just mentioned critical thinking. I do think that is one of the key skills that we're going to need, and there's going to be a premium on it. Just like there's going to be a premium on creativity, on judgment, on taste, on style, because AI, you can see, sometimes you think, oh, this looks like an AI generated site, because it might have some tells, like the color scheme is this purpley, is one of the ones that comes up a lot. There's a big, so being able to overlay your own insight, experience, and creativity is still going to be really important. You can generate thousands of ideas with AI, but you still need a filtering system to identify which ones are good and got potential. And that's going to be your own expertise, your own knowledge that's going to allow you to do that. And then the final thing is that the last, I guess, the last mile or the last 10% is the hardest. You know, things like adding in payment methods securely. So like Stripe, making sure that you've done a very secure security test, that you've got password protection if you've got user authenticates, need to authenticate users and any databases connected. That's the fiddly bit. Claude can help you troubleshoot. So I'll often say, you know, explain it like a 10-year-old to me, give me the steps I need to take to make sure this is right. The other little trick that I use, and I think Anna will demonstrate this when the build is, I'll get another model to mark the homework and mark the output. So you like might ask Codex to say, take a look at this plan. What am I missing? What could be better? Is there any security issues, etc.? And then feed that back to Claude, and you can even use Gemini as well alongside that. So you can build in that along with your own personal judgment as well. Just launched yesterday, very late yesterday, was Fable, which is Claude's new model. It's built on something called Mythos, which apparently is too dangerous to release to the general public because it's very good at finding sort of security vulnerabilities in software, and there's lots of implications. So they've done this sort of safe version of it. And I just thought what I'd do is a quick experiment. I would put my slides in from today's session and say, build me something that is going to wow the people coming along and watching. So this is what it came up with. It's quite interesting because obviously I mentioned the pixel things earlier, and that was in the presentation I shared with it. It's picked up on that idea, and it's the charity I often use for my things. I haven't got as anything as exciting as unicorns. I use a faith nature conservation charity, so it's picked that up from its memory of me. So it's combined those two things together, the pixel idea and my nature conservation charity, and it's come up with this fictional charity, Murmur, which is about saving habitat and wildlife for starlings. And saying England lost millions of starlings since the 1960s, and this swirling, interesting skies. Sponsor a pixel for £8, etc. So you can do here, I can simulate the campaign, so donations start coming up. I can click here, 3, 10, I've got cred. Love this. Sounds a little bit dodgy. Mean it. Then there's a little bit of reasons to give. You can see, you know, fictional charity. It's building. It's building. Oh, look, we're nearly at the total. We're there. Wow, there's this little animation. I love this. This was the bit that I thought, wow, this is another level again. That no prompting from me. One prompt, 10 minutes. It's come up with the idea. It's built the website, and it's even got this lovely graphic to show at the end. Again, this is all accessible to us now. We could, you know, host that on a live site. We could connect to Stripe, and if we were a Murmur the charity, we could be raising money for that within 2 hours. So, you know, great for emergency appeals, great for you know, timely campaigns, etc. I didn't show this earlier, but this is another one we did, prostate cancer. It's live now. Please do sign the parliamentary petition. We're nearly there, and it was about screening. Basically the government have said no to screening. So what I did is I created this website, scraped the data from the petition site using the public API, built it into this sort of interface. I can see how many people are in my area have also signed, see which areas are doing better. I can share it. I can sign the petition, and then I can also share a message. And if we can see here, we sent this out on email. We've got all these video testimonials from supporters saying why screening is so important, which is really powerful. And then we've got all these messages of solidarity of who's signing and why they're signing. and there's hundreds of these come through, so you can scroll through. So again, we got the decision on the Thursday or Friday. We knew we weren't going to get the news we wanted. Over the weekend, I had this idea: how can we bring it to life? We knew there was like 30 days till Father's Day. We needed 30,000 signatures, 1,000 a day. Let's create this and try and get it done. And again, built 3-4 hours of my time, under £100 of token costs, and it's up and working and gathering feedback from supporters. Could it be more polished? Could it be probably, but we've shipped. We've got something out. If you'd sent this brief to your web agency, how long would it have taken to do? And we can get things out like that, which I think is fabulous. So I'm going to pause it there. We're going to go back to Anna, and let us know how you're getting on, Anna. How's progress looking?
Yeah, so at this point during the build, I had gone in and first of all, we had asked our participants about the brand that they wanted to create, and that they had chosen Unicorns Unite, as mentioned. So the first thing I wanted to do was to create a little bit of a visual identity for Unicorns Unite. So what I ended up doing was I prompted Claude to create a few versions for us to be able to choose from. And I'm just going to share my whole screen here. Hopefully that looks fine. So I said, I'm founding a fictional charity for unicorns to provide support and unicorn well-being. Charity is called Unicorns Unite. Please come up with a simple logo, fonts, and brand colors. We want rainbows, we want sparkles, we want the lot. And it came up with these 3 options: Unicorns Unite, every horn matters. And here you've got a color palette. You've got some web notes. You've got some fonts. Here's the second option and the third option. Now, if we weren't racing the clock to finish the project as much as possible, we'd obviously go back and forth with Claude and say, I like this idea, but make it more this or that or whatever. But as a starting point, these were 3 good options. My personal favorite was number 1, but the group voted and they liked branding style number 3. And then the next thing that I did is I went into Codex, as we mentioned earlier, and I said, I want to create a donor data dashboard with some of the attached use cases. And then I used a picture of the email, sorry, not the email gen, of the votes that we had in Mentimeter. And so here it counted the different use cases, how many people mentioned them, and then identified the top priorities based on what the group said. So at this point, I had a sense of the brand. I understood what it was we were going to be trying to build. And from that point on, I could just start coding, vibe coding. Back to you.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so thanks. And I think it was interesting at this point, people asked some really good questions around, how do you build it? What is there any skills? Is this just Claude out the box?
Yeah.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I think it's probably a good place to sort of share how you set Claude up to be able to do that so quickly into
yes, and thank you for remembering. That was a really good question from Jenny Sullivan. So essentially her question was, how have you set up your Claude? And my answer was, there's sort of 2 things to be mindful of. I'll go back and present my screen. So in your Claude, you have several options. So there's setting up your Claude yourself, and then you have projects that you can set up. So here within Claude, you can see you've got chat, you've got co-work, and you've got Claude Code. They're 3 different tools, and it's important you know which one it is that you're setting up. But in my personal Claude, I've set up a Claude MD file, which is basically your operating instructions for Claude, so that are specific to you, how you want it to use. You could also do things like set up files that it reads through every time before it executes on a task. So some popular options are things like anti-AI writing style, avoid using em dashes, avoid using it's not this, it's that, whatever. But there's lots of things that you can put in there to personalize your Claude setup so that it runs in the way that you want it to run. But then you also have projects, and that's something we looked at here. So when you set up a new project, you can start from scratch. And then what you do is you can give instructions to Claude on a specific project level. So not only is it using the general instructions that you've given in your Claude setup, but you could say for this project, you are an expert full stack developer, and we're going to be building lots of different things for this charity. Or you could say you are a web designer with expert taste and whatever. So you can put different types of instructions in here, and you can also add files. So a really useful thing that I do when I work with different charity clients or companies is I'll drop in some files about that charity. So maybe their brand book, maybe some important information to draw on in the writing style. Whatever it is, I can drop it in there, and then then Claude will look through those files as and when it's relevant during the course of that project. So that's a little bit about that. And then also I have set up a lot of bespoke skills, but I won't do that because Craig's already talked about his skill setup. So it's really similar. I've set up a lot of skills that are reusable skill sets that I use a lot.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most powerful use cases, isn't it? The skills, and you can see here, you can just call them by /. So I've got things like charity fundraising analysts, creating personas and audience insight, a donor wow designer, support survey designer, copywriter, case writer, innovation, newsletter, all these different things, mid-value, SEO. So all these things here. And one of the interesting things is there's even a skill. This is a Claude out the box thing that says, help me create the skill. So, you can again have that conversation, and Claude will create it for you. If you give the information on work that you do regularly, on your charity, etc., this is where it gets really powerful. And this is where I think it levels up your use of AI as well. And really understanding that hierarchy of projects, which is like an individual piece of work, and then skills which go across everything, I think is one of the most important, I guess, learnings and use cases that really took me from I get it to help me write some emails to actually this is helping me improve my output for myself, for my clients, and across the board. So I think that's really important. We could probably do a whole other session just on that. But if we go back to what we were talking about, some things really to think about before you start on this and get going is we're not saying feed it your CRM data right from the off and give it confidential information. We're saying start with the things that actually don't require that. So things like web pages, microsites, calculators, tools, something interactive. They don't have any of that sensitive information. So the risk is very low. If something goes on wrong, you can just delete it. You don't have to publish it. So just look at the low risk but high benefit use cases. And again, one of the things that always comes up is to say, well, I'm not allowed to use it. And I think it's I think sometimes we have it the wrong way around. Rather than ask for permission from the IT team, it should be about, I want to do this. How can you help me do it safely and appropriately? And what's the data protection impact assessment I need to do? What's the guardrails I need in place? That's the way to think about it, rather than, oh, can we use this? Because the default answer is no. And so I think switching that round and saying, I want to do this. It's got these benefits. It's going to save us money. It's going to be better for our supporters. How can you help me make that happen? Rather than this reliance on Copilot, which has limitations. It's not terrible, but it's the analogy I use is like asking a chef to create like a Michelin star meal with a bread knife. Actually, you need lots of utensils. You need a mix of things for different use cases. Some are better at cutting, some are carving, some are intricate filleting knives, and it's the same with AI. There's different ones that have different use cases.
I
We
also
mustn't
just wanted
forget.
to jump
Oh yeah, go
in
on, Anna.
quickly and add a lot of conversations that I'm having at the moment are around AI ethics and how charities should set up guidelines. And it is a bit of a minefield. I think a lot of IT teams, as Craig said, deferring to caution and saying no until they feel more confident. So I think it's really useful to bring that conversation to the fore. And, this is something that Craig and I are both having a lot of conversations about. How do you make sure that you're being very responsible with your data, responsible with your systems, but really utilizing the power that a lot of these tools have? So just shout out that that's a super important conversation to be having. I think it's worth having, even if your IT department is being a little bit cautious.
And I love the work you've done around tokenizing data and making sure that if you are sharing data, you do it in a way that's anonymous, but it still can then be brought back. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that works and what
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for my dashboard generation tool and for my data analysis and data cleansing tool that I built in my toolkit, that was one of the big concerns that I had, because it's a publicly available toolkit. It's free to use in Danish, unfortunately, but Craig has one for UK charities. But one of the things that I was mindful of is that some people might just go on there and upload their donor data files without knowing what happens to that data. Now, obviously, if you upload donor data to Claude or to ChatGPT, it doesn't get shared per se, but it's still it doesn't get shared with the world. It doesn't show up on Google in the old world terminologies. But you are sharing with an AI corporation. You are sharing with OpenAI. You are sharing with Anthropic or whoever it is. So one of the things I built is something called a tokenizing approach, or pseudo-anonymization, it also gets called. And that's where you teach the AI to encodify your personal data under GDPR. So that's things like names, email addresses, phone numbers, postcodes, anything that's super identifiable down to the donor individual level. Postcodes is a debatable one. You can choose whether you want that tokenized or not. But again, what it basically means is that it will change that data to be a symbol. And so rather than sharing like Craig Linton to Anthropic, it would share a symbol that represents a donor that is probably male and that is probably something based on the postcode, making some assumptions, but without sharing the raw data. And you as a user don't actually see any of this happening, because you upload the donor data file, you see the actual names, you see the actual data, but Claude or whichever AI does not see that data. It sees the symbols. But then after it's run an analysis and done whatever it's doing to the data, it'll send it back to your local device, which then decodes it. So you see all the data as you normally would. You're not seeing this process happening, but the AI is not seeing that data. So it's a really, really useful technique for making sure that that the data that you're sharing isn't being shared beyond your local device, beyond your computer. It is a bit tricky. It is a bit finicky. I would say I had to run quite a lot of testing to make sure that it was working properly, because occasionally Claude would tell me that it was working, and I would go in and look at the data provenance and see that actually it was seeing the full data file. So it's something that does require a bit of phasing and staging and testing, but definitely worth it.
Great. Thanks, Anna. To share my screen. So we touched on most of these points, but again, it's just making sure you've got that due diligence, those checks and balances in place. you know, the skill is in the asking and knowing what you want. You know, it's all garbage in, garbage out. Often used when we're talking about data. The same with AI, and making sure that if you do build something, that you're testing it, making sure everything, all the buttons work, etc., and it's safe to do so. So we talked a little bit about this, but these are some of the tools that we're using and we're talking about. You know, if the thinking and the writing, obviously Claude is very good at reasoning and writing. ChatGPT, that's often what most people think about when we're talking about AI, and that's what the most popular platform is. The gap is closing, but is a good all-round tool for you to use. You've got things like Gemini, which is baked into Google's products. It has been lagging behind, but again, apparently there's new models coming that are meant to be really good. It's very good at image creation with Nano Banana, which is one of the tools in there, and it has things called gems, which is the equivalent of Claude skills. And then Copilot, as you know, is in the tool that many of us are forced to use. One little tip that someone told me recently, if you click in the top right when you're using Copilot, you can choose what model and the length of thinking. So for more complicated tasks, make it extended thinking and you'll get much better outputs. Then we're on to the building. Obviously, we're talking about Claude Code. That's our tool of preference. You can do it on the desktop. You can also create things like terminals, which sounds scary, but actually, once you get into it, there's lots of videos online and tutorials. That's how I learned, was just watching some YouTube videos of experts and building it, which just gives you some more functionality and ways to do it. But absolutely, you can do 80–90% of what we said on the desktop version. Codex, which is OpenAI's version of Claude Code. And then you've got almost like wrapper sites. So these have just built an overlay over Claude Code, over Codex, to make it much more user-friendly and a really easy to use user interface. Things like Lovable, Bolt, Replit. You can build these full web apps, and it's all powered underneath by Claude, but it's just probably quite a good easy entry point for lots of people. If you are a little bit unsteady, it'll really guide you through it. It makes the tools easy. It connects things together in a way that where you're not having to use sort of GitHub ignore commands and things like that, which starts getting quite advanced in terms of not sharing, you know, API keys and things. It does it all safely and securely for you. And then once you create this stuff, you don't just want it sitting on your computer. Sometimes you want to deploy it. So there's a site called Netlify, which is great. You can just upload a file and it will HTML file, and it will display your sites and you can share it. If you want to publish an app live or a website live, Vercel is really good for that. You know, the Replit, things like Replit and Livable, you can deploy direct from them as well, and they'll host it for you, and you can buy domains and things as well. So that's how you go from thinking to building to actually getting something live in the tech stack that we use. So we said these are the tools: Claude Chat and Core Work for thinking, planning, writing, and then Claude Code for the building, and that's what Anna's using right now. We talked a little bit about the file structure, but this is really important. And you know, if you come along to any of our live sessions, we'll talk you through this, and part of the process will be building your own Claude MD. MD is just a type of file, just keeps it very simple and makes it easy for the AI to write. Which is about the instructions. Soul is about you as an individual and what your preferences are and what your workload is. You can upload instructions or your brand guidelines, your tone of voice and style guide, and then, you know, files and folders that store your outputs, give instructions for where you want to host them and do things. So it's really important that you get the file structure right. My assistant's called Barry, and you can see here that, you know, I've got my agents in there, I've got clients, I've got generations, which is all the stuff I've created and ads and things. I've got memory, different generations here. I've got my environment, there's my Claude MD, there's my soul, there's a user. So you've got all this file structure that helps you get the most from it. So you're not having to repeat yourself. So this might take an hour or two to set up, but it's going to save you hours, if not days, over time, because you do it once, and then you can tell it every week to automatically look at the work you've done this week, make recommendations for the memory, and so it's constantly learning and building. And then we sort of talked about skills and the specialist commands and automations. You've got these new agentic platforms coming in. I've not used them too much. I don't know if you've experimented with the likes of OpenClaw or Hermes Urgent yet, but you hear lots of buzz about them, and they look exciting but a little bit scary as well in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I have tried OpenClaw as the only one of these, but then I did also watch a YouTube tutorial, because I do love a good YouTube tutorial, that said that actually a lot of the use cases for OpenClaw that kind of drove its popularity are now available within Claude.
Yeah.
So a lot of the same stuff that you can use OpenClaw for is also now available within Claude itself. So I've sort of phased that out a little bit, but give it a Google, because they can do different things, and some of them have a better experience for certain tasks and agents and so on.
Memories, yeah. And then you've got things like, so Loops is one that came out of OpenClaw, and this is based on it's called Ralph, actually, which is after Ralph Wiggum, the Simpsons character, and he just keeps going and going and going and looping until it sort of solves your problem. And then you've got Alex Kapathi, who's one of the sort of godfathers of AI, and he shared something recently about how he creates a memory for his AI and an AI brain. And if you want to go down those rabbit holes, they're really interesting, but get this file structure in this first bit right first. But we just wanted to share that things. So really our challenge, if you're watching this, is just, where can you start with this? Pick one thing, a task, a process, something that you do most weeks, an upcoming campaign or an appeal that involves writing or analyzing or organizing information. Just open Claude, ask it to help and see what happens. It's amazing how quickly you can get to some really amazing outputs just by being inquisitive, by trying it and learning and building on things. Anna, do you want to talk about this, because it's changed a little bit, and might even have an update since the webinar, I don't know, but we want to help you build this. We're really excited. We want to share our learning and help you put in place a system so you can build your own things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what Craig and I have had a lot of feedback on separately, and we sort of came together and realized this is something there's a lot of demand for, is just a bit of hand-holding in a lot of this process. I think a lot of people are super keen. They really want to get started, but they want to make sure that they're doing it right. And so all these things about setting up your file structure, setting up your Claude MD file, setting up the souls, setting up your projects, this is something that Craig and I essentially can help you do. So the concept that we had is build something good. You come to a 4-week sprint and leave with something tangible, something that you've built that you can use at work or another use case just to practice. But ideally, it's something that you can use practically in your fundraising at your workplace. So if you come with an ambition, maybe you want to build an automation, you want to make a process run on its own with very minimal intervention instead of being really, really manual, or you want to build something like a cool landing page like Craig has shown a few, or a dashboard like I'm about to share, or anything like that, you can bring that as an ambition. We had originally scoped it to be 2 days in person in London, where we bookended the start and the finish in person, and then have an online community and one-to-one support online throughout the 4-week sprint. But we've been in touch with Anthropic, who are the creators of Claude, and they're super keen to sponsor some of these sessions. So what that means is that at least one of the in-person days will have to be open to the public, and then Claude will help promote it and give the attendees some free credits to help them get started with building. So we're still in an open dialogue with Anthropic's Claude ambassadors, but we're pretty sure that's going to go ahead. So we're just trying to put some finishing touches on what exactly this program looks like. But essentially, we do know it will be from the 1st of July and 4 weeks on. And we will be sending details about this before the end of the week. So when Craig sends out this recording, there will also be an option to register your interest. If this is something that you feel you'd really like to do, please do get back to us and we'll notify you as soon as we know exactly what this is going to look like.
Thanks, Anna. So back to you, really. Let's take a look at what we built. Let's look at how our unicorn charity are doing.
The grand reveal. So it's very fortunate that I get to redo this because we really did run it down to the wire on the live demo. But basically by the end of the session, what I had done was I had spoken with Claude. Spoken is funny. But I had gotten Claude to ask me a load of questions. And so I said, use the ask user questions functionality to get as strong a spec as possible for this interactive dashboard. And so Claude quizzed me on what I would like. It said, how are we going to define a lapsed donor? How are we going to engagement score? What do you want to weight more or less? How many records, like dummy records, should we be building, and so on and so forth? Once it had asked me all these questions, it built this spec file. So you can see this is based on all the input that I provided through just a chat-based question asking piece. There's loads of information in here. And you can see here on the document tabs, there's a lot down here. So what's the visual? That's based on the Unicorns Unite brand that we all agreed on earlier, and what's in and out of scope, etc. The reason I ran it down to the wire in the live session was because I asked it to create 10,000 donors, which was maybe a little bit foolhardy because that took quite a lot of time, but it did mean that the dashboard was a little bit richer when we got to presenting. So this is what it created. Again, this was created in 45 minutes because we spent 15 minutes of the session coming up with the charity name and the branding and voting on Mentee and all this other stuff. So this really took only about 45 minutes to create the spec and then do the build. So you can see here, based on the 10,000 donors in the file that was generated, you can look at 12-month rolling retention, donor status, churn risk distribution, and it's got a little thing to tell us exactly how it's defined churn risk, cohorts, and then you can do some filtering here by, is it the last 12 months? Is it the last 3 years? Is it all time? And you can see the data is actively moving. So you can see this is now going back to 2021. So that's when the earliest record in this data file is created. You can also filter by donor type, individuals, corporates, and so on. And you can also look at the donor value. So here you've got some overviews, gift size bands, lifetime value distribution, income over time, top segments. You've got some demographics. Again, these are the types of unicorns that donate to our charity. A lot of female unicorns, that's pretty representative probably of the charity sector. Now you've got your acquisition channels. So here you've got which acquisition channel they were acquired on. And then over here, you can see, oh, can you see on the screen? Yes, you can. How many of them are still active? How many of them are deep lapse? And how many of that are lapsed? And again, that's based on what it asked me as how to define those different criteria. You've got the acquisition volume and so on and so forth. So again, there's a lot here. Here's your engagement scoring. You've got lead distribution scoring. I think that one was maybe less diverse when it created the demo data. But here you've got really good engagement scoring data. So you've got the scatter plot. Who should you steward? Who should you upgrade? Who should you nurture? And who is at risk? And so on and so forth. Here you've got your top 25 donor leads. And here, this is probably what took it a little bit longer than it should have done, was creating whimsical unicorn names for the donor file. So you've got Suna Glimmermane and Hornson and so on and so forth. This is actually funnier in Danish because it's used Danish sounding names. So I can tell you that this means like star and so on. So anyway, that's all been created in less than 45 minutes based on the spec that was decided by the group. You can see that here it says, fictional demonstration data, Unicorns Unite is sadly not a real charity. Tears. But this is, this would be an excellent first draft. I mean, there's definitely things that we would want to improve. There's definitely things that you would spend a little time finessing, whether this, exactly matches the initial brand spec, etc. This is the type of stuff that you spend time refining. And in my experience, the refining process sometimes takes a lot longer than the actual build. But this was what we were able to create in less than 45 minutes live on the call.
Yeah, I think it's really good going and a really good example. Again, I think some of the projects I've worked on around analytics and dashboarding and using Power BI, and you're talking again tens of thousands of pounds, months of work, and good work as well. This is not, because that's how you had to do it, and that was the only way you could do it. Yeah. Now you're creating these like incredible things in minutes with your data sets and other things.
Exactly. Yeah. And we could, the two of us, Craig, we could have a conversation for yonks about what the future of software is, because the price that you pay for a Power BI license year on year, when you can actually just create this yourself for little to no money, is a big challenge. And I know that's going to be very unpopular because some people are midway through a Power BI process or build, or they've just committed to a 3-year contract or whatever. But we're really reaching this tipping point where a lot of the software that we pay a lot of money for licenses on, the value of that license is drastically falling, and you see that in how the markets have responded to a lot
from the share prices of some of these companies.
Share prices of Salesforce and share prices of Power BI and other BI software. So this is a really fantastic use case. I think also, I mean, maybe we're running out of time, but the last thought I would just say is, this was so simple and easy because it was based on dummy data. You can make it exactly the same with real data, but then the real data has to be clean. So the magic in sort of being able to instantly visualize all this has this caveat that your data has good governance and that it's well structured and it's clean. And that's the same for Power BI. So a lot of the time when you're buying a BI tool, the majority of the work is getting your data ready to actually get utilized. And the same holds true for AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point. So thanks, Anna. Well done. I think you did most of the heavy lifting there, but pleasure putting this together. If anyone does have any questions who's watching, please do get in touch. If you're curious about the course and the hands-on support, please again, contact us. We'll be delighted to have a chat. We're excited what we can hopefully go on and build as a group, really, and go through this process together, and we hope it's whetted your appetite. And thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.